Hey YouTube, I've moved things about a wee bit. I've moved the camera from there to there because today I'm going to talk about my SOVTEK amp, which on my early videos this was my main amp the whole time until I replaced it with the wee Laney. I do still use it though. Someone was round a couple of weeks ago and was like, "How come you don't use that amp?" And it's like, well, I do. That's the one I use. I'm in a band, Cranking House, so I take that into the studio with me. And this is the cabinet which I bought for this, for gigging. You can see actually just now the way the light's shining on it, what a mad shape this cabinet is. It's like a 3x12. So this is a SOVTEK MiG 60. I bought this brand spanking new in a shop called Victor Morris in Glasgow. It had been in the shop for years, and actually the day I was buying it, I met the owner of the shop who I don't think I'd ever seen before. My dad came in with me because I was 18 or something. I think I got it for my Christmas present or something like that maybe. And the guy who I bought it off was actually Victor Morris, because my dad's I remember buying he bought his stereo amp, it was up an old Pioneer hi-fi part off the same guy like before I was born. So it was the actual guy, although I think it might have been his that was the sort of the older guy, and there was a younger guy who was, I don't know, more like my dad's age. I think it was his son, who I think was Victor Morris as well. And he told me the story with these amps. He bought exclusive distribution rights for SOVTEK in the UK, and he got a few samples sent over. At least this is what I can remember, and what I sort of pieced together. He got some samples sent over, and then he was all set up for being the main stockist of SOVTEK amps. And then he bought looking in the guitar magazine, and there was other exclusive dealers in the UK, so he got pissed off for that, never bothered buying anymore. So I think Victor Morris might only have ever had one of each model, sort of thing. I remember this amp being in a shop on the south side of the river. This is Glasgow centric. There used to be a shop called Mr Music, which was owned by Victor Morris, but it was more of a guitar shop. It was in below railway arches, and it was huge. And it was the stock in it never moved, according to when they closed the shop down and they moved it to a more central location. I remember saying, "Oh, I can't believe this place is gone." And the guy said, "You're the only person that ever comes in here," because I certainly never saw anyone else in the shop when I was in. But this amp, I remember being there for years before I bought it. It was brand new. But the thing that put me off was because at the time I wanted an amp with distortion. Yay! If you go back before I knew anything, I didn't realise that actually having master and preamp is like having distortion. I didn't know what a tube amp was any times. I seem to remember it being about 150 quid or something like that, but it kept coming down in price every time they had a sale every year. It would knock 20 quid off it and stuff like that. And eventually I ended up buying it for 50 quid. It was in there was a used to get a big sort of a large street buy and sell paper called Scottish Supermart, which I think came out on a Wednesday. It was yellow, and it was just basically, it was free to advertise in it, but it cost you 60 pence to buy the actual paper, so it was like full of cars and guitars and all that sort of thing. And Victor Morris always had a full page ad in it whenever they had some sort of sale coming up, and in this sale thing it said all tube amp 50 quid, and I was like, all tube? Tubes are good. I'm sure I've heard of them being good. So I went in and tried it out. They had this one, the MiG 60, and they had a MiG 100, which was full size. This is like a sort of mini head. The MiG 100 looked like something that World War II, the Nazis. It was black and silver, and it looked totally evil. It looked like Skull or something from X-Men or whatever it is. Kind of looked like that. But it was 100 quid, so I bought it. I was only interested in the 60 watt one. Incidentally, the guy was an absolute arse who sold it to me. This is not the owner, this is the actual shop assistant. And I was like, "Can I just check it, make sure it's working?" The guy's like, "Oh, okay, try it out." So he went and he gave me an Epiphone guitar, and it's like the strings were all totally slack on it. It was like totally detuned, and you're just like, it didn't even give me a guitar that was even remotely had ever been in tune. And you're just like, because he didn't. I think to be honest, he was pissed off that I'd bought it the day that it went on sale, whereas he'd maybe had lots of customers in because of it. So that's my SOVTEK MiG 60. There was a cabinet that went with it. It was the same width as it. It was a 1x12. It was quite tall though. It was maybe not quite as tall as this cabinet. It was maybe something like that. With a 1x12 on it, which matched, which was pretty cool. But it was 120 quid, and it's like they had that in the shop for years after I bought this, and I kept seeing it in the corner, and it never went. As soon as if it ever went down to a reasonable price, I would have bought it. But I'm not going to spend 50 quid on that, 120 quid for a speaker. But at the time, I think I had an H&H speaker cabinet or whatever. Yeah, so SOVTEK are now. I was watching. This is not that long ago. The JHS pedals guy. I seem to talk about him quite a lot. I quite like his videos. He's got a big wall of these behind him, all different colours. There's like a big. There's a 40 and a 60 and a mini something and the 100. He's got a wall of these behind him, and he keeps threatening to do a video on SOVTEKs because he obviously loves them and collects them. But he's not yet done it. And so the story with these is it's made in Russia, and apparently the Electro-Harmonics owner guy gave them a schematic, like when the old Soviet Union was sort of collapsing. There was like sort of factories that were producing radios and submarine equipment and all these sorts of things, and he gave them a schematic for a Big Muff pedal, and they made the now famous SOVTEK Big Muff, which people like better than the original one because they didn't have the exact parts, because obviously these were all Western parts, so they had their own equivalents of whatever this capacitor was and whatever this resistor was. They would just have like Soviet made ones, and then he made to them, says, why don't you try and make some amps for me? And the first one I believe was meant to be a 30 watt Fender Bassman, and they got it back and it was like 70 watt, and they're like, it's not really. So they kind of, because everything's very approximated, it's not really like any other amp, even though it's just a copy of a circuit, but every part, because it's all Soviet stuff, is slightly different tolerances, and it's like, okay, here's your valve, okay, not valve, that's one thing that wouldn't change, all the other stuff is all bespoke submarine radio equipment. It's fun. I mean, I absolutely love it. So what I've always been using it in, if you look at old videos, I was using it. It's got a low input and a high input, which isn't like a normal low and a high input. This is it kind of only uses half the valves or something. I'm not really sure exactly how it works, but it's half the volume. That'll be just straight in with the cabinet. So that's it on single coil. If you stick it on a humbucker mode, you can hear it's already starting to break up with valveness. And that was basically my launching point for the sound I've always aimed for. I used to use a rat pedal in it to make it distorted, because it doesn't really distort very much in low power mode. So I gave me my clean sound, and then the rat pedal would give me the distortion. Which I could, to be honest, instead of having Delaney, I could be back using that, no problem just now. Yes, so where was I going to go now? Right, so that was the low input. High input, this might be quite voluminous. This is from the last time I was in the studio with Crankenhouse playing, so I've not actually touched the knob since then, so this will be a bit louder. A little bit louder. I've actually turned the volume, we've started to play a bit quieter now in the band. I used to have the gain and the preamp at half, was my in the studio volume, so this will be a bit louder. so that was quite a bit louder, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out and I'm going to stick in my pedal board so I can use it on the lower power settings. But always been my favourite amp ever since I got that. I've tried other ones. The only thing I ever found ever came close to whatever that sound is. I mean, it doesn't have a great variance in sound, and that's it clean. This is like when we were playing there at volume, so it doesn't really. The only real way to have it clean is to crank the master volume and turn the guitar down. You know, proper old school. I mean, the band were absolutely shocked when I turned up with that amp and no pedals whatsoever. You know, it's like, where's your pedal board? And it's like, don't need one. Got the SOVTEK. It cleans up nicely when you turn the volume down. But so you've either got quiet and clean-ish, or loud and rocking. Fantastic thing. The knobs in the front, I'll actually, after I've played it a wee bit, I'll pick it up and I'll show it to the camera so you can see what's cool about it. I put the snake skin on the front. This panel here you can take out. It's just like the same black leatherette stuff as the rest of the amp. But I took that off, took the badge off, wrapped it in real snake skin, and then put it back on again. So that actually, you can take. It's just held on with sellotape on the back, so that comes off. So I've not ruined the amp, even though the snake skin does look really cool, has to be said. I'm going to run this to the tuner, which I should have done before I started. But now I've got my so that was my thinking was when I had the rat pedal before. This. There's no way that's in tune, but you lying bastard tuner. I think we're talking about time to get a new tuner actually. It's actually quite a lot darker now that I've put the pedal board on than the Laney. What I think I might do is I might have a wee, another video where I play a wee jam with it. I'm not really feeling it for having a jam with it just now. I've only just turned it on, not tried it in the house yet. So I've never really adjusted any of the knobs on it. Only the master and the preamp, which we used to have. In fact, when I used to play it in the house, these were both at half. I wonder if that's a bit better. Okay, that's made a huge difference. So that was what for all my early videos, and basically for years, that was the setting I used to have. Which does kind of sound a bit like it did if you got it into the full power output, which is basically the point of it. So that amp was pretty good because you could quieten it down, even though you don't get the same distortion thing. I mean, at the time I would have been very happy just to play it without any pedals, but you have to have it loud to get the distortion. So you can have, if you use the low input, it doesn't really, you could hear it sort of starting to break up when I was thumping it with high powered humbuckers. Yeah, so these things are now, they've been reissued and they're bloody expensive. I was watching, I don't often watch it, called a thing called the YouTube channel called That Pedal Show, and they were talking to that guy from, I think his name's Josh, from JHS Pedals, and he was like, they were like, oh, Josh has sent us a SOVTEK, he's always going on about them, blah blah blah. It's like, can't wait to see this SOVTEK. So they opened it up and it was a brand new one. It wasn't a real one. A real one. You know what I mean? It wasn't an original. So I think we were a bit disappointed. But I mean, the new one's like 900 quid or something crazy. I didn't really realise they were sought after amps. I always knew as soon as I plugged it in, the first time I took it into the studio with the band I was in, which was called G-Rock. I remember when I got it and I used to take it into the studio with my Gibson SG, and it just absolutely kicked ass. fantastic little thing. I'm just going to unplug it and then show you a bit closer. Obviously I could do this if I started bothering to learn how to edit and like that. No. So, obviously it weighs an absolute ton, just a tube amp. So, here's our SOVTEK MiG 60. These get slagged off a little bit for having dodgy, cheap jack sockets on them. I was actually going to say cheap plastic jack sockets, but this one doesn't actually have plastic jack sockets now I look at it, so maybe this one's is a slightly later or a slightly earlier model than the usual. This doesn't say Kuduno, even though it looks like it says Kuduno. It's actually Russian writing, and it says Siberia. It's like some of these are like a backwards Q and a backwards G and stuff like that, so it's not actually Kuduno. I always thought Kuduno was a strange thing for it to say, because that's what it does look like, that's what it says, but it's not. It says, and if you pronounce it in Russian, it's Siberia. So there you go. On the back, this one never actually had, it's still got its factory original piece of sellotape where the fuse should go here, so it should have a, you'd expect it to have a, like a fuse holder. It's got there's a fuse in it, it's an inline fuse. And I bought about 10 years ago, I bought like a wee plastic, the thing with the unscrewable fuse, which I've just never bothered to fit. So I'm leaving my factory piece of sellotape that covers up the hole where the fuse holder's meant to go. As you can see, it's got different outputs for line, 4 ohms, 8 ohms and 16 ohms. And my favourite thing is it's Novorossiysk City, or whatever it is. So I think this was like an old, I always like to think of it as being its old submarine parts. I was actually told when I bought this that you weren't allowed to make these amps anymore because of the radiation they gave off. And that just made me want it even more. It's crazy on the inside. It's I've seen point to point wiring where you've got like a sort of board, and you stick all your components on it and you join them all together on a sort of on a blank circuit board type thing. This doesn't have that. All the components are actually soldered straight onto the bottoms of like the valve bases. Like, so you get your, the actual thing that the valve sticks into, and the bottom has just got 10 prongs. Well, these prongs have got like resistors and capacitors and stuff actually joining the prongs of one valve onto the next one and stuff like that. So I mean, it's proper super handmade. It looks like something straight out of K-19. The Widowmaker, one of my favourite films. If you've not seen it, check it out. So this will be never getting parted with, because it's just, of all the amps I've ever tried out, this is the one I've liked best, and I've always tried to find one that was similar to it. I'm not sure, the original advert, which I do have in a guitar magazine from, I think it's about 1992 or something like that. It wasn't a brilliant advert, but it was like a slim column, and it described it as that 60s Hendrix sound is what it's meant to give. So, and other people, so I think it's meant to be like a Marshall Plexi, but it's actually more like a JCM 800, I think I've been told. There's an awful lot, there's forums and stuff on this nowadays because it's a bit more well known. But if you ever see SOVTEK amp and it's not on eBay or something like that, it's well worth a shot. I just bought it because I thought it looked cool, and I liked SOVTEK. My pal Michael used to call himself MicTech, and I was thought, oh, SOVTEK, MicTech, be quite funny. And I was actually in a band called the Blind Dug, and we used to cover it was what it was at the time, the current single by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We played it live before the album came out, because I bought the single, like the 7-inch single for By the Way, and Chris used to sing SOVTEK as one of the lines. It kind of goes dun dun SOVTEK, and that was, so I always remember that being quite funny. So I've had this amp for the longest time, and it's still going strong. I've never changed any parts in it or the tubes or anything. I remember taking it into the studio 20 years ago and actually sitting outside waiting for a taxi in the snow, sitting on this because it was warm, because it'd been getting rocked for 3 hours. It's a bum warmer. So I have been semi-looking for other SOVTEKs. There's still a wee part of me that wished I bought the 100 watt one when I was in as well. I would never take the 100 watt one over this one. This one I'm totally happy that I got. But if I could go back now and I saw them brand new for, you know, 50 quid and 100 quid, I would have bought the 100 watt one as well. But in all honesty, there's no reason that I could ever have needed any more power than what this has got. It's loud as hell. I've been, a couple of weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago now, I decided that I wasn't going to, we were paying for the Berkeley studio in town, and it was like, you know, you're paying for a Marshall GCM 2000. So I was like, I'm going to use the Marshall, just because, rather than lugging my amp in all the time. I've tried that one, and I've used the Laney as well, and they both sound fine. And it took me ages to even get a sound that I found usable at the JCM 2000. It's just a completely different beast. That's just like, you just turn it on, plug it in, and you go, that's me, I'm happy. I don't need anything else. I'll just use the sound that it's got. Whereas on the JCM, it was like, you know, it was hundreds of fiddling just to try and get something that approximated that sound. You know what I mean? I tried putting everything at 12 o'clock. It sounded fucking awful. You have to use gain channels and so I basically, I don't know how good this is as a versatile amp. But if you're wanting your Fender cleans and stuff, then buy another one. This one is for me. It does that sort of crunchy, rocky, Sabbathy thing brilliantly, and that's all I really want it for. So, hope you enjoyed me just talking shit. I never really played very much through it. I should really take it into the studio and give it a proper. Next time I'll maybe take the video camera into the studio once all this coronavirus is over, and I'll do a proper video showing it working, because it sounds absolutely amazing. The studio, especially with that cabinet, sounds absolutely thunderous. Incidentally, the preamp and the gain both go to 11 because I bought Electroset. This was when I first seen Spinal Tap 20 years ago. So master and preamp go to 11. Yeah. And one of the ones, there's one called Tube Midget, which I always quite fancied as well. It's a 30 watt one. Basically, I would buy the lot of the SOVTEK amps if they were at reasonable prices, which I don't think they are, or you could ever find them. I mean, occasionally you see one on YouTube, on eBay. I'm not even sure I've seen another MiG 60. There's definitely a MiG 50, which is like a black front on it. There's definitely a mini, what did I call it a minute ago? A mini or a micro or a baby one, which is like, I think it's half the size, and there's a MiG 100, which I've only ever seen that one that I didn't buy the day I was in Victor Morris. Yeah, so rock on.